There's a number of steps to successfully transition from traditional architecture to a cloud architecture, and I'll just highlight the ones that I think are probably the most important. One of the big areas to focus on is data. So typically, when you're moving to a cloud-based solution, you're transitioning data from ground-based proprietary systems to cloud-based. So you need to know your data. You need to know what the structure of that data is, and you need to be able to successfully transact that data to and from potentially the ground and the cloud-based solutions. So that's a big area to focus on. Another area, obviously, which is top of mind of people, is security. So you need to make sure that the access to that cloud-based solution, the classifications of the data, and the protection of the data, for example, are secure. There's a number of countermeasures to ensure that. I think you need also, especially in Asia and in other countries, you need to be mindful and understanding of the regulatory issues. So in some cases, some countries have regulatory requirements governing how sensitive data is stored. So you need to be careful and mindful of that and thoughtful. Some of the other areas I think are important to keep in mind is the project plan. This is obviously something you would keep in mind for any project, but typically what my experience, cloud computing projects will involve teams that are geographically dispersed, and as a result the project can be more complicated. And so you may have a team in one part of the world and teams in other parts of the world all collaborating on your cloud computing project. The coordination of that becomes much more complex than is typical of traditional projects. So thinking through how to address that. In fact, in my experience was to actually build project management tools and put them in the cloud and allow these disparate teams to have access to the same information, and that was a way to mitigate some of the challenges that we found there. Another thing to go through, as you would do with any project, is to think carefully about what the risks are and what the potential impact of any given risk is, what the probability of any given risk is, and then think carefully about what the countermeasures to those risks might be. Strongly recommend prototyping. Cloud computing is typically very new for most companies. My experience, you don't get it right the first time, so build into your project plan a need to prototype and exercise that prototype. In my own experience, I can think of, in fact, my very first experience, we had a 2-hour window of opportunity where we had to get data from the ground-based systems to the cloud-based systems. The architecture was very elegant. It theoretically should have worked, but it took 18 hours to get the data from point A to point B, and so we had to go back to the architectural drawing board and reconsider our approach. So, in short, incorporate a prototyping capability in there. And two other areas that might be often overlooked. One of those is promotion. So if you build it, it could be a fantastic solution, but you need to be able to promote it. And because it's in the cloud, there are some special challenges in promoting it. If you're promoting a cloud-based solution, maybe a service solution, to your external customers, they have to know that it's there. It's the equivalent of building a website and trying to drive traffic to it. So you need to develop a promotion plan to get your customers, or whoever your target audience is, to leverage that investment. Otherwise, it will be the return on investment will be in question. And then lastly, think about your community that you want to roll this out to. Try to segment that community into logical segments. Start with a small segment, roll it out to that segment first, learn from that, incorporate that learning into your plan, go to the next segment, and so on until you've made your way through the whole your customer segment that you're focusing on. I think so, yes. Especially when it's their first cloud computing project. Within any organization, there will be various reactions to a proposal to use cloud computing. Headquarters will be concerned. The brand may be at risk if the data is compromised. So there's a lot of time spent in the planning process educating the organization. There's obviously a lot of time spent getting the architecture right, and as I mentioned, prototyping the architecture. So the planning process will typically, for the first project, will typically be 2, maybe even 3 times longer than the actual implementation. So get it right in the plan, and then you'll be very successful in the implementation. Once my experience, again, once that first project has been implemented, then you no longer have legal issues to contend with. You've already addressed them. You know the architecture is already in place. Hopefully it's been proven. You know your data. All those one-time issues have been resolved. The time to market thereafter is even more rapid. The impact, I think, is tremendous. It's typically, I have found that the cost of a cloud-based solution is typically a third of the cost of a traditional solution, and as importantly, the time to deliver it is much faster, and I've seen 4 times the speed of delivering a solution using cloud computing. One of the reasons for that is cloud computing, especially software as a service and platform as a service solutions, dramatically reduce the programming complexity of traditional solutions. So as a result, you're able to turn around the solution much more quickly. The other reason for this is you can very quickly prototype things. And so the traditional approach of building a document which describes the requirement and going through the revisions of that document before you actually even build anything takes a long time. In cloud computing, you can actually sit down with your customer, and in 24 hours you can have maybe 50% of what it is that customer is looking for. And so you bypass that, plus the testing is much more rapid as well. So I think the time to market is a huge advantage when you're focusing on the application layer, infrastructure as a service. The provisioning is much faster as well, so that's another big advantage.